All right, we are live and all set to go.
Very good. All right, welcome. This is the Northborough Historic District Committee meeting for June 27th, 2022. So let me start off by reading the COVID requirements. And I'm Norm Corbin, I'm the chair of the committee. This open meeting of the Northborough Historic District Commission is being conducted pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021. This meeting will be conducted by a remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the town of Northborough has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public hearings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of the Historic District Commission are allowed to and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the Historic District Commission to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to the Northborough Remote Meetings on the YouTube via the link that's on the original agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. So let me roll through all of the meeting members and make sure we're all here. Just give me a thumbs up if everything's working. Leslie?
Here.
Bob?
Here.
Brian Swanson?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Reardon?
Here.
Amanda?
Here.
Mike? Ishano?
Here. Here.
And Lorna Helms, I know, could not make it this evening at the last minute. So that should be, is there anyone else missing? Millie is missing. So those are the two that couldn't make it tonight. So the ninth agenda starts off with public hearings for demolition. We haven't done these. It's been a good year since we've done one of these. So I'm gonna, for those who aren't familiar with this, especially anybody who's watching, I'm gonna read some information from our bylaw. Actually, if I can share, let me see if I can find it first. Find it. And let's see. Do we all see that document?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, okay, so the reason I'm bringing it up is again for anybody who's new to this process. So this is the bylaw that's in regard to demolition of historic buildings. And I'm gonna actually read some parts of it. So the intent and purpose. This bylaw is enacted for the purpose of protecting the historically and architecturally significant buildings within the town, and to encourage owners of such properties to seek out persons who might be willing to purchase, preserve, rehabilitate, or restore such buildings rather than demolish them. So what our role is to determine if the building is significant. It's either architecturally significant or if it's historically significant. The way this is done is when there's a building that's over 100 years old, the building inspector forwards that information to the Historic District Commission. And we look into it. So that's part of the package, is to know that it's over 100 years old. And the second part is to determine if it's significant or not. And that's the process we're going to go through tonight, to determine if it's historically significant. Also, both of these properties are included in the Massachusetts Historical Commission inventory of historic and architectural assets. So that's why we're going through this exercise this evening. The way the process works is once we're notified from the inspector, we have 30 days to determine if the property itself is significant. We hold this, part of this is a public hearing, but the other part of it is we also look for information on the property. We look on information from the Historical Society, get information from the Massachusetts Historical Commission, the owners, and some information, and tonight's evening is the general public. So with all of that information, then we talk through and decide if we think significance is warranted in this case. All right, so I'm gonna stop my share. So I'd like to start with 87 Hudson Street. And Tom Reardon is involved with that project. So although he's on our board, he's also going to help us walk us through the property itself. Tom, I just don't want you to participate in discussions about the property. Only want you to inform us of the information you have about the property.
Sure.
So,
Do you have any photographs?
yes, I do. Bob took a few. Let me find them. He took more than a few, but
I have a lot if you want me to show mine on the screen, but I'm not sure how to do that.
I think Jim can give you access to sharing a screen.
So everybody should have access. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a green button that says Screen Share. By clicking that, you'll see all the different tabs you have open on your computer, and then choose which one. Just be aware that what you share, again, is being recorded on YouTube.
Okay, so I can just press share content.
The first thing you have to do is open up the file with the images.
Okay,
And once that's open and on your desktop, then hit shared screen.
okay. So share screen. Can you see that?
Not yet. When you click on share screen, does it show you your screen with the different files you have open?
It says share content. Is that the same thing?
I believe so. You may be using an older version of Zoom.
Okay, it says share photos.
Yeah, it's different.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, can you see that?
No.
No.
Yeah, so when you choose it, there may be an option in the bottom right corner to hit share.
I'm clicking off the pictures I want to show.
Yeah, so choose the screen. So yep. Oh, perfect. Here comes something.
There you
Okay.
are, Bob. You're in.
Okay,
job.
good. All right, so this is the side of the house,
It's the rear.
and that on the right is the porch. This is actually the back of the house.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
This is the side
South side.
facing south.
Yeah.
This is the front. That's I think, Tom, you had some comments about the porch and how that was Civil War era.
Yeah, pre-Civil War. Macris dates it around in the 1850s. Now, these are not historically accurate dates or their time period, so it's pre-Civil War. So it has elements of Greek revival. You can see the tapered columns there with have a paneled look, and you have this soft segmental arch porch, and the Let me see if I can get to. You see this detail here? This is a traditional Greek revival detail where the crown molding comes down and it returns along the eave, but you do not have it coming across in this direction. So that type of detail is authentic. Many of the attempts to recreate this today are incorrect. They bring this crown molding across here as well, and that's not consistent with the Greek architectural tradition. So the fluting or the paneled look of the columns and the detailing both of this and this return are historically accurate in terms of Greek revival architecture in New England. Obviously, it's not been maintained, so these details are degraded considerably.
Okay, should I move on? Okay.
Yep.
This is the, looks like it's the facing south side of the house.
Actually, north.
It's, oh,
This is facing away from town towards 290.
oh, really? I thought it was facing the town.
Right, here's the front porch over here.
Oh, right. That's what I meant. So
Yeah.
it's so I'm taking the picture facing south.
Yes, you're standing south, but the elevation is north. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a lot of missing joints, mortar.
Yeah, there's a lot of damage here,
Yeah.
water infiltration. The eaves are certainly corroded. You can't quite see it, but the roof is kind of scalloped. You got a lot of water damage here. Somebody has attempted to fix the lintels here, but you can see that the walls are starting to deflect. But like Norm pointed out, it's probably locally made brick. You have the traditional pre-Civil War granite cap on a rubble foundation here. But the building has not been occupied for 10 years, but I believe a lot of the damage probably was well on its way before it was abandoned.
And I believe it's been abandoned for 10 years.
Hasn't been occupied, correct?
This is the same side of the house with a little back. I think that's a cupboard off the kitchen.
Yeah.
Okay. This is that little porch on the other side of the house. Keep going.
Yep, keep going.
This is the kitchen. This was the one nice piece of furniture, the built-in cupboard with brick walls. This is the kitchen facing away from the stove.
It's actually not a brick wall. That's it's like a wallpaper product.
Oh,
That's
sorry.
not brick.
Okay. That was a door to the basement, and towards from the, I guess it would be a dining room facing the front of the house, looking towards the front of the house. So on the left, you have the hallway from the front door. In the middle is the basement steps, and in the right, it looks like it's the door to the living room. Okay. Stairs going upstairs. And on the left is the living room in the front of the house.
Oh, wow.
Oh, this is the fireplace, which is boarded, but it's the living room in the front of the house. That's the fireplace. I guess there is a chimney somewhere, but we can see it.
It's the height of the ceilings. They don't look like they're dropped, but they sure look like they're right up against the headers of the doorways.
Okay.
Okay, upstairs, there's 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. That's the bathroom. Nice view of the woods from the bathtub, but other than that, it needs work. All right, this is the in the hallway upstairs. On the left is the master bedroom in the front of the house, and on the right is the second bedroom. And this is the front of the house. You know, again, the whole upstairs has the forget what you call a ceiling, obviously from the roof. Okay, and this is the back bedroom. This is the basement. Looks like a relatively new furnace. And big spiders.
Yeah.
This is the garage, which I believe was built after the house. I don't believe the garage is 100 years old.
No, the concrete block they're using here is probably from the 20s or 30s. Stamped concrete block.
So it could be close to 100 years.
Yep.
This is, we thought those doors looked interesting. Norm had a suggestion about donating the doors. Do you want to expand on that, Norm?
No, later on, let's just go through the pictures right now.
That's all I have for that property.
All right. I'm trying to see what I did here.
So I'm going to stop sharing. Okay.
All right, thank you. So that's the architecture of the building, and then there's the historical part of the building, and I need to pull up the macros data for that. Just give me a moment to pull that up. Let me try to see it screen. You all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this was inventoried in, I think, 2009 in terms of, so this is on the database with the Mass Historical Commission. And it describes for those who haven't seen this form before, we have this for like 300 properties in the town of Northborough. So this is just for this particular home. And the architectural description is pretty much what we just went through. There is some history associated with it. It's considered the C. Rice property. And Curtis Rice was a farmer and a soap maker of moderate means. He lived on Hudson Street with his wife, and talks about his real estate value. His soap making shop was in a small building just north of the house. So that doesn't exist today, or at least it's not part of this property today. It shows he made like 200 barrels of soap. His daughter was a dressmaker, and her brothers were shoemakers. So there's certainly some history, does any of these old homes have about them. There we go. That's when the house looked a lot cuter than it does today. So we've got the architectural information. We've got a little bit of history. I went to the Historical Society. They had about the same. They had this pretty much the only thing in the file was some nice pictures of the house from maybe 20, 30 years ago, and then this inventory form. So it wasn't like there was a thick folder on this property. So the thing I'd like to do right now is to get an idea from if there's anybody waiting for us for comments from the general public. Jim, do you know if there's anybody waiting to speak on this property?
At this time, I don't see any hand raised, but if anybody would like to speak, you can use the raise your hand feature. I believe it's located in the bottom left-hand corner of the Zoom pane. And if you're calling in, you can use, I believe it's *9 to raise your hand, but I do not see any phone numbers at this time.
Okay, thank you, Jim. So at this point, why don't we start having a discussion amongst ourselves? And Tom will recuse himself from this part of the discussion unless we have a particular question regarding the building. So, Leslie, would you like to start off? What do you feel about the property? What do you think in terms of its significance? Or
Well, it's been condemned, right?
it hasn't been condemned?
Oh, it hasn't. I thought I saw a mark on the outside that it was condemned.
No, somebody spray painted on it that it would be demolished.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, I misunderstood then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it has seems to have great historical significance and architectural. I don't know how reparable it is and whether it's worth it, but to me, it seems like it's just from the time period. It seems like it has significance.
Brian Swanson?
It has some significance, but I can't necessarily see much you could do with it. I mean, it's state of disrepair and so forth.
Yeah, this is very common for a lot of the buildings we get to look at. And then when they're in this kind of a state of disrepair, I did not feel very safe walking through it.
Yeah, I'm certainly curious what Tom's feedback is in terms of, of its ability to be restored.
Let's hold off and get Amanda.
I mean, I think it's historic. I think the disrepair is worrying. In my research, it looked like the owners have owned it for 10 years. So I don't know if the disrepair has been of their own hand. But just from Tom's, discussion about the property, it does sound historically significant.
Mr. Light.
Well, I don't know if there's been a building inspection recently, but if they were going to sell the house, they'd have to have it inspected. And I'm not sure what they would find. It just seems like it's.
Let me back up because I may be more in tune than the rest of you. Tom, correct me if I'm wrong. This building there is a plan where this building will be sold and demolished and a brand new duplex will be put in. All the design work's not completed yet, but the exterior facade has already gone through the planning board, zoning board of appeals. Is that another one?
A planning board, design review, and conservation groundwater.
I don't know if you guys remember, or maybe 4 months ago, I got in touch with the building inspector. I think I copied you guys. There's a hiccup in the system. I would have liked to have been known about this project 6 months ago. By the time we hear about it, pretty much all the ducks are in a row to have it torn down and have it rebuilt. So that's, I don't know if you all recognize that, but you need to know where we stand today. We are the last step in the process, and my pet peeve is I think we should be the first step in the process, and I don't know how to get there. I have to have more conversations with them because the building inspector doesn't get notified for demolition. It's more of how do we convince the developers to contact us early in the process. But so anyway, Bob, I'm bringing it up, Bob, because yeah, it is for sale. It will be sold.
It just seems, yeah, it seems like it would be, if someone were to try to restore it, I just don't think I think it would cost a fortune to restore. And there might be things in the foundation, in the heating system, the plumbing system that would have to be completely torn out. And without a building inspector, we really don't know that.
Mike, what do you think?
Well, I would say, although there are some aspects of it that have some historical interest, such as what Tom brought out about the crown moldings, and perhaps if we go further into the door latches and whatnot, I don't see the significant, to me, it's just not that significant. And I guess I focus on the key word of significant. I understand that it has some history with the Rice family, and I know Rice is was a popular name in Northborough as far as the Baptist congregation goes. But I didn't see where the Rice connection with this family to the Rice connection. I mean, perhaps that could be another aspect of the historical nature of the home. But I just don't see the significance as far as historical significance that I would oppose it being demolished.
Mr. Smith,
I agree that there's some historical significance, but I don't want to see the building retained. I vote no.
okay, and then I'll go last. This is, again, this is typical of us. A lot of the houses that we see, by the time we get to see them, many of them have been unoccupied for many, many years, and they're starting to deteriorate. When I looked at it from the street, it's a cute little house. And when I looked at it up close and walked inside, it's like, it's a cute little house. It's dangerous. And I don't, it has some cute history. There's no doubt. It has some cute architecture. There's no doubt. I don't think it's a significant. To put it in perspective, to me, significant is White Cliffs. It's that kind of a thing that jumps out at you, that it's clear. This is something that's not that level of significance in my mind. I don't like to see these little houses torn down. I don't like to see them in this kind of disrepair. But when it comes to us in this condition, I just don't see how. I just don't see how someone would buy it and refurbish it, which would be the goal. So now that we've all had our piece, let's talk amongst ourselves pretty much and see where we would like to, when we feel comfortable to take a vote for it. So does anybody want to defend what their thoughts are, or?
No, as I mentioned, I'd love to hear Tom. You don't want to bring Tom's opinion in? I mean, I think that kind of informs.
Yeah, thank you for, Tom can certainly come in and talk about the property. I just have to be careful that I want to know the facts. That's what I want, not so much his opinion. That makes sense, Tom?
Sure. So the existing property, as you pointed out, is about 1,200 square feet on the 2 floors. And it has not been occupied in over 10 years. And, you know, you can see from Bob's photos that all the finishes in the systems, the exterior brick, which is a double wide brick wall, the roof framing, the painting, the eaves, exterior trim, all the systems are deteriorated. And it's highly unlikely anybody would refurbish an existing non-conforming house in the terms of its zoning. And that's one of the reasons it played into the decision that the best use, highest best use for this property would be to demolish this older structure and put up a new energy efficient conforming building on Hudson Street. So I agree that there were some elements of the Greek Revival in its original design, but it's kind of a hybrid where you've got a gable to the road cape with some applied Greek Revival details. There's historically accurate details, but you know, I would have to agree that it's not historically significant compared to other Greek Revival properties in town. We have dozens of temple front to the road Greek Revival that are in very good shape, and I wouldn't categorize this as something needed to be retained or saved. But I know my client is certainly willing to donate any components that anybody would be offered to take off our hands to the interior doors. There's some nice 19th century door hardware. There's some older timbers framing for the floor, first floor system. So
Any of the granite, you mentioned the granite foundation?
there's a granite cap on the foundation, which is certainly available.
It's a slightly different topic, Tom, but we've requested this from other cases where a home was built down, is a home with some architectural features was torn down. In the new construction, will there be any consideration to incorporate some Greek revival look from the exterior?
Well, yes, we have developed the duplex that has the gable to the road look, which is similar to several houses on Hudson Street. It has a wraparound porch, has an L-shaped configuration. The garages are on the side, so they're not facing the road. And that was one of our goals, is to make sure it had some of those elements, architectural elements of the New England vernacular. We're also hoping we might be able to recycle some of the timbers from 56 Hudson Street wing that was built about 100 years ago. We're going to try to see if we can recycle some of the timbers to be used possibly for the floor framing of the duplex, or maybe use some of them for porch posts. So we're going to try to recycle components from the street into the new construction.
Thank you, Tom.
Mhm.
Okay, so do we feel we have enough information to put this to a vote? And
Yes, I would say so.
would someone like to make a motion?
I move that I'm not sure exactly what the motion is. We move not to exercise our demolition delay, or we approve the demolition request.
Okay, let's see.
Okay.
Our vote will be to determine if we are going to vote to determine if the building is considered significantly historic or has significant historical architecture. So that's what the vote is. We were voting on significance.
So moved.
All right. So if a yes votes means we think it's significant and the demolition delay will proceed. Concept of a demolition delay is 6 months of a delay to convince the owner to find another alternative to demolition. So that's what we're looking at. That's how the process is going to work. All right. So I will start with the voting.
Do you need a second on that?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Brian.
A second that.
Thank you, Brian. All right, so a yay means it's historically or architecturally significant, and nay means that it is not. Mr. Swanson,
No.
Bobby, you're a voting member now, correct? Mr. Light?
Yes.
All right,
No, I'm
yeah,
voting.
yes,
voting
you're a
no.
voting.
Yes, I'm a voting member.
Okay, but no for the vote.
No, yes. No.
Michael,
No.
Mr. Smith,
No,
Leslie,
No.
and I vote no. So it's unanimous. I will write a note to the Board of Selectmen and to the building inspector that the building is not considered historically or architecturally significant and the demolition can proceed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tom, for guiding us with some insight on that property. So now we will switch over to the second topic, which is 455 Main Street, which is the Sterrup Brook Farm. Just a little bit of background. The town owns that barn. It's between two residential houses that are privately owned. They own the barn because they own almost like 35 acres behind the barn. They've owned it for 20 years. So that's a little history of who owns the property today. So I think I like what you did the last time, Bob. Could you pull up the pictures of the barn?
Yes.
And we have Sean Thompson here, who's representing the town for the building. Oh, let me make one note regarding 87 Hudson Street before we wrap it up. I will send Tom, I think I may have already sent you a list of companies that utilize recycled wood. I'll notify the Historical Society if they want to do a walkthrough in case there's some hardware that might be of interest. So those two things are going to happen also.
Okay.
All right.
Can you see my screen?
I see it. Wrong building
Okay.
though, but I see it.
Right. I just wanted to point this out. This is the inn, the old inn to the left of the barn. And the section, you see the dirt section in front, that was the part of the inn that burned down. So it's a much smaller house than it was back in the, I guess it's pre-revolution.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting because it became like a bed and breakfast, and they were renting rooms for $1 a day. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But anyway, this is not for discussion, but I just wanted to show this is the inn, and then the barn, I guess, was built afterwards. So this is the side of the barn, the left side of the barn with obviously a big hole in the side and the roof. This is the interior, and you can see the light coming in on the left is where the hole is. But it's really interesting woodwork and design of the loft. This is the interior looking at the hole. And I guess we weren't allowed to walk too far in because we weren't sure about the structural integrity of the flooring. This is the, at the bottom in the center is the front door of the barn from the inside. And it looks like it's, looks like an attic portion above the loft. Tell me if you want me to stop at any point.
Could I make some comments, Bob?
Sure.
So what is interesting about this pole barn is its scale. It is 4 stories. It is, has 4 usable levels. One you access from below. That first view of the frame, could you go back to that photo? Two photos back. Yeah. So if you look at this, these are cross sections, these posts, and they form what we call a traditional timber frame bent, which is, it goes from side to side and goes all the way up to the roof. And then between these bents, you have these, they're called purlins. And then you have the rafters on top. So you've got this hybrid pole barn with part post and beam and part stick built. You see these lead-in bracing here. So they're not using traditional scarf joints or pegged with oak pegs or anything. So it's unusual in that it's a transition from a true post and beam to more of a stick built. So this is kind of an intermediate phase, but it's just look, you've got a stair that goes all the way up to the attic level here. So it's 4 stories and it's just huge. Unfortunately, it's falling apart. And that's the shame of such a fine structure.
I could see this as an art studio of some sort.
Yeah, that's really incredible.
Yeah. Okay, so we saw that. That's you mentioned it was 4 floors.
3 in the inside, and then you have the drive under down below.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, this is great. You see the lead-in bracing here going in 2 directions. It looks like these bents are like 12 to 14 feet apart. So I think there was 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. So it's like probably 40 by 60, so it's quite a large structure.
So do you know what the different levels would have been used for, Tom?
I'm not sure. They probably, hay storage, but you can see the central bay has a raised, this level is raised up, it's like a story and a half. And then you have full second story on the sides, and then over the middle, you have the fourth story.
I think the interview that I remember with Heitzmer indicated that they did a whole lot of haying. And I'm sure the way this is set up, the openness of it, I don't think if I remember the interview, he said they didn't really have bales for the most part. And so this would all be probably just open hay that they brought in from the field and just placed in to feed the cows. This was a dairy operation, if I recall.
Yes, it was.
And they had, I think he said they did pasteurization, but then in the 50s when they required, pasteurization. And then when 50s when they required homogenation, they decided to get out of the business due to the cost of the equipment. And so that I don't think this has really been a dairy farm probably since the 50s or so, according to what I recall from the interview.
Yeah, in the interview, they mentioned that the old, I think it was the Ellsworth farm, used to have the milk run in Northborough. And then when they sold the milk run to these farmers, so they had at the very end, they had a milk run through North.
The other thing I took away from that interview was which I kind of knew, but I guess I didn't really grasp the full breadth of what Northborough was back in the early part of this century, probably up till the 60s or so, that how strong of a dairy and a farming community it was. And I think Heitzmer went through quite a list of people and farms that were in the area and how they all ended up kind of getting out of the business and then selling their property, and houses were built around after the war. And so the change of Northborough was from this kind of a focus on farming. Dairy was a prominent aspect of Northborough, it seems. And then slowly but surely, the wheels of progress took over and people moved in and the farmers sold their business. And that's kind of the part of the history of Northborough that, I knew it was a farming community. I just didn't realize it was so many farms. He named 4 or 5 or even more that just gave me the idea that this whole area was probably a pretty avid farming community.
I just have a few more photos. Okay, this is that structure out back. It's in we didn't get a chance to go in there. I don't know what that is, a garage of some sort.
Is this part of what we'd be voting on tonight?
I think, yes, I think this is going to be demolished, as well as the pumping station they mentioned. I didn't take a picture of the pumping station. The path on the right is the path that goes back into the farm from Main Street.
Sean, if you have anything you want to add at any time, just speak up, okay?
And this is the back. This is the back of the farm, back of the barn, on the opposite side of where the hole is. So this is essentially the right side of the barn in the rear, and off to the right is that structure, the garage structure at the very right. And that's it.
Do we know? Excuse me. Do we know how old this thing is?
Well, the information we have, it's on the order of 100 years old. It wasn't clear. The information we got from Heitzmer and Alan, his stepbrother, was it's around that time frame when they moved in. And so right now we're in 2022. So if it's not 100 years old, it's 90 something years old. So
the original, that brochure that you sent around, Norm, shows the picture of what the inn looked like in colonial times, and it didn't have the barn.
Right,
But then when it became an inn for rent, it did show the barn.
right,
But couldn't find the date on that brochure.
right.
That was the brochure where they're advertising $1 for a room. So I imagine it must have been a long time ago.
So Bob, why don't you close out these pictures? I'm gonna pull up I'm gonna pull up the other pictures I have, just to be thorough here. Let me see where I hit that.
So in line with what Bob just said, this barn was probably not around at the time of Mary Goodenough, right? Goodenough?
Correct.
That's
Correct.
right. And by the way, that's right across the street from this, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
So would the Goodenough, the farm where Mary Goodenough was associated with, would that be this farm, just not the barn, but the building known as the inn? Would that have been connected somehow to the Mary Goodenough
Family.
situation there?
Main Street actually shifted a little bit. So the original Main Street, I think, was closer to the barn. And they mentioned that there was a farm across the street, which was
Right.
the Shooty farm. So I'm thinking that maybe Mary Goodenow was on the Shooty property, not the.
Yeah. If you look across the street, there's a duplex that's been there for quite some time. And in front of the duplex is the plaque for the Garrison House, which was associated with the Mary Goodenow. So that is across the street on a different property. And there's a historical marker there that states that estimates where the Garrison House was that she would have been associated with.
So what I'm not sure of is if the Stirrup Brook Farm owned property on the other side of Main Street.
Yeah, without doing a deed research, you wouldn't know if that.
Yeah, so it may have been that their property was the Goodenow site, but I couldn't.
What we're being asked tonight to vote on is the demolition of the barn. So that would have nothing to do with Mary Goodenow, right?
Correct.
Right.
Okay. That's all I was wondering about.
All right. Let's see if we find what I'm looking for here. I thought I had.
I'm sorry, I apologize if I missed this. Why is the town demolishing it? Just because it's in jeopardy of falling, or because they've got plans for that area of the property?
So it's become a safety issue, really, with the two privately owned houses now being occupied, one of which has a 7-year-old. There's no real way to secure the barn. And as you can see, it's starting to fall in on itself.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let me just, so we all in the public can see these old photographs. So let me get back here. Found what I was looking for. Share the screen. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So this is part of a brochure back, I don't know, the 1920s maybe would be my guess. So this house is still standing. This wing had burned down, and this was a barn associated with, and it's not the barn that we're looking at today. And this was the inn. This part of it was where they had the inn set up.
Where is this relative to the barn that we're talking about?
The barn would be right to the right.
Okay.
The new barn is right there. There's another image, and
You have the other image, Norm?
yes, this one. This is vintage. Somehow it's written somewhere that it's not 1930s this, but this shows that old barn is missing. This seems to be expanded the inn, but again, that's burned down, and this is the Stirrup Brook Farm we're looking at today.
Do you have the other picture of the inn from the more modern one?
Let me see.
It's in the same brochure.
Is it? Okay, hold on one sec.
Massachusetts was bounded on the west by the Pacific Ocean?
Yeah.
Back in the day.
I don't know about that.
Mhm.
How does that ever work? That's not true.
That's how people in
they-
Massachusetts.
That's a quote from Christopher Columbus.
Yeah.
I think they meant that back then, each state went west as far as they could go. So like Ohio was considered Connecticut. But I don't understand how Massachusetts, because Massachusetts would have run up against New York. So that doesn't make sense.
I apologize. I'm not able to find the picture I was looking for. It just somehow it's
So
on.
that picture that you just showed, the barn, if it had a wider view, the barn would have been to the right. Was it existing at the time that picture was taken, when it was known as the inn?
No, it's
So it was built after that?
that's what it appears to be. Yes.
Okay. So it's a fairly, I mean, relatively speaking, it's a fairly new barn, right? I know it was active during the dairying period, but if it wasn't present when this photo was taken, I mean, and that photo was taken sometime around the 1920s or so. That means the barn had to be pretty new.
Maybe back then, but that's 100 years ago, right?
Well, yeah, if it was 1922 or 1921, it would make it 100 years. But I mean, that property called the inn was probably there, I don't know, well,
Norm,
300s.
Norm, that other picture was in the email you sent. Could you call that up?
Let me see if I can call that up.
The email with all your attachments?
Let's see. When did I send that out? Like Friday?
Wait a second.
Like, do that.
The email with the attachments was sent the 21st.
Thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome.
You know, I don't know if you called for public comment yet, but there is a hand raised, just so that you're aware.
Okay, well, once we're done with our discussion, I'm not having any luck finding it. I'm sorry, guys. I'm looking at all of the 21st. Let's try one more thing. Is this the one? Oops, I can't see that. I thought I already showed this one there. I think this is the one. This is the one I already showed. I can't find what I'm looking at. But the bottom line is we're worried about the barn. These other pictures are almost a distraction because they're not part of the project. They're private homes that aren't part of this issue today at all.
I was just trying to establish how long this barn's been around.
It's from the owners, it's about 100 years.
Okay. So
there's no other picture with that, Norm, in the email?
I can't find my email, so I think it's the run. It's a 1920 type construction is kind of what the owners had said. So where are we now? Let's see. Sharing. All right. So
can I ask one other question?
of course.
After the hurricane passes. I guess I would direct this to Tom. Would you think or give it an opinion as to whether this would be the last hay barn or dairy barn standing in Northborough? Or do you think that there's other ones that would be around or have been converted into something more than just an old barn? My question would be, if we vote to demolish this, is this like, where are we losing a connection back to when Northborough was the epitome of dairying in the area?
I know there's one on the corner of Lyman and Bartlett that there's a court case. So that's being suspended, but that has an older barn. It's
Yeah.
also filed for demolition, and I think you voted for a 6-month delay.
Correct, Tom.
I think there's out near Crawford and further out in Whitney, there might be a couple old barns out there. There's a road out near Maynard Street that goes into Berlin that has an old barn and house from the
Right at the line.
1700s. What's that called?
Yeah, on Howard Street,
Yes.
there's a house from the Civil War.
So I think there might be 4 or 5 total
Okay.
that I'm aware of. This is not quite as old as those. Those are 18th century. This is, early 20th century.
Yeah, okay.
But it's
I
it's a
have the
beauty.
picture.
Too bad it's
Amanda,
collapsing.
yeah,
I have the picture. Can I share it?
you can certainly share it.
Okay, let me try.
So you,
Ah, yeah, there it is.
So that's it. And that car has to be 20s at the oldest, I would say.
And that's before the fire too.
correct.
Yeah. So that gives us a general idea.
So Mike, definitely it's probably the largest existing barn left in Northborough that I'm aware of. But it's shrinking as it falls apart.
Yeah.
Well, that's, Sean, has the building inspector ever commented on the safety of that building, other than knowing that the wall's falling down?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I don't even know if he's been out to see the building. I just, once it was brought to my attention that we were gonna be looking to demolish it, we reached out to you just to go through the process of getting it assessed and see what, if any, historical significance it had before moving forward.
You know, there's a lot of interest recently in town about, well, this is another town property, and it comes up as, okay, so what do we do with town properties? Are there things we can reuse them for? I don't know if that's the case with this barn, but it makes you kind of think, if it's in such a condition that it's dangerous, then this is almost a no-brainer. And I don't know if it is or not. The reason I'm bringing it up is in the demolition delay bylaw, the last paragraph in the bylaw, actually that one I can pull up. If the building's dangerous and it's a hazard, the building inspector can say it has to come down. He notifies us that it has to come down, and then it comes down. So my question with this is, I want to get that wording right because I think it's pretty important. So let me see if I can do this really quickly.
So Norm, you can have a building that's condemned that doesn't have to come down. It has to be secured. So
Okay.
no one can go into the property. So there's a lot of buildings, you drive down Oak Street in Westboro, you see the big red X's on these former state buildings. They're still intact, but there are fences around them, or they've been plywooded, barricaded.
So of course I must have closed it, so it's not showing up on my screen. But anyway, just as a heads up, it might come up once in a while that some demolitions will not run by us because they would be considered a hazard.
What is that land zoned for? Do you know?
I don't. I know it was originally purchased for a sewer treatment plant, but we ended up just sticking with Marlboro, so they never ended up developing it.
It's in an RC zone, so it's residential C.
But the path to the back of the barn is where the trails are. Stirrup Trail.
Mhm.
Excuse me. So it would be, if the town owns that, it could be a place to park to go on the trail. I don't know if the Trails Committee has anything to say about this.
Not about the demolition of the property. All right, let's all, like we did last time, give this some thought. What do we think is the issue here? Again, is the building historically significant? And is it architecturally significant? In this case, I'll start off, because I've been thinking about this one for a while. There's no doubt in my mind that the land, the property around that building, the old property, the old farms, land out back, is absolutely a key historical part of the town. I'd be real concerned if the residents that used to be the old inn and the old Heitzmer property, which was the old Bartlett property, if that came down, I'd really be concerned. The barn to me is just barely makes the 100-year criteria, and I'm having a hard time thinking that it's significant. It's unique. I kind of hate to see it go down, but I just having a hard time justifying a future use for it. In a sense, I wish the town, since they've owned it for 20 years, would have given some consideration about what to do with the property, what to do with the barn. In one of the notes I had, when the town bought it, they were going to burn it down and use it as an exercise for the fire department. But the owners stated that they did not want that to happen. So it just sat for 20 years. But so I'm having a hard time seeing it as architecturally significant or historically significant, just the barn. Mr. Swanson?
I think I agree with you.
That was too easy. Amanda?
I think I think it is somewhat historically significant. My parents were born here in the early 50s. They always say that there were more cows here growing up than people. And I don't know that we have any other links to the milking barns that we had before. I don't know that the property is definitely significant, but I don't know that we'll know why the land is significant if the barn's not there.
Mike?
I don't think it's historically significant. I think Tom pointed out some of the structural features of the barn that shows it to be kind of a mishmash of both post and beam construction and sort of modern day construction. The building is deteriorating. I hate to see another link to the Northborough history of dairying go down the wayside, but there are other examples, as Tom pointed out, that in town that still exist. And since this isn't the last man standing, I don't think it has the significance. I mean, it has some historical features that are interesting, but just like 87 Hudson Street, I just don't think it's historically significant.
Bob?
Well, I do, and I like the front of the barn and the fact that it's at the beginning of the trail. I would love to see the front of the barn painted with a sign done over. But I think it all rests upon the town inspector saying it's dangerous or not. If and that would obviously mean it should be torn down. But if it could stay, I would vote to keep it up. If it could be, without a big ugly fence around it, but if there was a way to protect people and just refurnish the front of the barn and leave it up, I would do that. Because it looks great from the road.
It does have a good look. Mr. Smith?
Michael, as my offer of giving up on the barn. It's too gone. I'd vote no.
Tom,
Well, yeah, I hate to see the old barn decline like this, the old barn buildings and structures, because they do, it's one of the few building types where you get to see the structure as well as the architecture of the exterior. So it's all on display. And that's a rarity for me, is to be able to see how it's put together. And it's an unusual hybrid pole barn. But if the building commissioner went to see it, he would condemn it.
Leslie,
I agree with everything everybody else has said. I mean, it's a really cool structure. It'd be great if we could keep it, but it just seems like it's just not realistic at this point. So, I mean, what if we said it was hard? So here's a question. If we say we vote that it's historically and architecturally significant, but there's no future for it, is there any point to it? So, I mean.
yeah, it's pragmatic in a sense.
Right.
Sean, do you have any ideas what you would use that barn for?
I don't, but I do know, just from talking with Scott and other people in town, that there's such interest in the architecture that our intent during demolition would be to hopefully salvage that sign at the front of the barn. And we'd be willing to donate that to the Historic Society. And then we're going to try and salvage as many of those beams as we can. Those will become property of the Sewer Commission, but I think they'd be willing to let them go, and hopefully be able to use them at different things around town. I don't think we have an actual use for the barn structure itself as currently constituted.
To Bob's point about the trail, I wonder if the sign could even be incorporated into the trail in some way.
Yeah, I mean, that does sound like it justifies a 6-month delay to have the town do those things, save the sign, save some of the wood. That would be part of the 6-month delay, wouldn't it? Because if we vote now to demolish it.
Well, so that'd be part of the demolition process. We would salvage that stuff while we're demolishing it.
Okay, so.
This comes down to, holding Sean to his word that they would try to salvage the best they can. Some of the beams obviously can't get broken, but salvage the best they can. And I Leslie made a good point, and you, Bob, maybe there's something to be said for not retaining, that's not the right word, but if you disassemble it, if we could keep that lettering on that, somehow make it part of the trails.
Right.
This is a concept. I'm not sure how this would work out, but
Yeah.
Disassembling the sign and then reassembling it as part of the trail system or something like that. It would be a unique idea. And if you could give some of that some thought as part of the salvaging some project, Sean, that would be good. I think that would be some PR for us. Do we have enough to vote?
Did we have a public comment out there?
Oh, yes, we do.
said-
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. Jim, please bring that comment fellow person in.
Yep, so I see Andy, if you can unmute and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, can you guys hear me first of all?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Hi, yes, my name is Andy Bezanson, and my dad is Al Bezanson. I think some of you have known him over the years. And my uncle, Don Heitzma, and I think most of those emails and photos, I was the one that forwarded them along. And you guys did a decent job, not 100% accurate on your history of the property and what parts have burned down and who owned it and so forth. We'll have to revisit that someday if you really wanted the super details, but you were right on. I guess I just everything everyone has said makes sense. I think obviously kind of emotional. I remember, helping my grandfather feed the cows. And when I was young, it was a heifer farm. So he didn't have, milking anymore. They just raised cows until they had that house fire. And then all the cows got out during the fire and it was too much of a hassle. So he sold his last cows when the fire happened. And then he just, baled hay and sold hay out of the farm. So many gardeners and other people, horse farms and whatnot would buy hay. So they baled hay until, I don't know, I think pretty much until the town bought it. And then I think, it was said by a few people, geez, when the town bought it, it really didn't have a purpose. So it went unmaintained for all these years. I think it says a lot for the barn to have survived so long unmaintained. And if you guys like the sign, my sister painted it 30 years ago. So if you need, she works out at UMass, so we could probably still get her to paint it if you needed that. But I think what Sean was saying was wonderful. I think the spirit of the family would just love to see the beams reused if possible.
Well, thank you, Andy. I don't know you, but I know Dawn, because he'd be your uncle, and then I've met your father a few times. You've been very helpful giving us information about the property. Interesting cast of characters. It's nice to see. Is there anybody have any other questions for Andy or comments and before we vote? All right. Well, thank you, Andy. Appreciate your participation.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody want to make a motion on this lovely barn? Do like we did the last time?
Yeah, I would say let's use the same wording that you used the last time, if you can remember what that was.
It'll be close.
Okay.
So again, we want to, I'm going to say it so that we're going to determine if it's significant or not. So the motion is to determine if the Sterrebrook barn is either historically or architecturally significant. So a yes means it's significant and a no means it is not significant. All right, let me start with Mr. Swanson.
Say no.
Mr. Light.
I'm going to say yes.
Mike.
No.
Brian Smith.
No.
Mr. Ridden, you're not a voting member. Leslie.
Yes.
And I vote no. So no passes, 4 no's and 2 yeses. I think both Leslie and Bob, let's see if we can, keep in touch with Sean as the demolition occurs and make sure we can do some salvaging of the signs and the other things.
Yeah, I'd be very happy if they could salvage the front and the sign and maybe some of the beams. That. Keep in mind, if the barn is in disrepair and it's a danger, then I'd have to have voted no because it has to come down. But I would like to have a formal process in place to see what they can do with the beams in the front.
And Sean, what's your timing for demolition? Do you have anything in plans at this point?
No, we were waiting for this process to play out. I'll now, between the list you gave me and 2 other vendors we've worked in the past, start bringing people out to take a look at it, to get some pricing together, to figure out which procurement method we have to follow, and then kind of go from there.
Okay. For those that don't know, I did send Sean a copy of the list that we have for companies that reuse old wood. So there's about 8 or 9 companies on that list, if I remember. So hopefully something will come of it. I know there was a house on Whitney Street that somebody did take advantage of that and removed a lot of the old hardwood boards from the floor. So there are people out there looking to reuse a lot of old boards. All right, so this should close the public hearing for the 2 demolitions. And I thank everybody for participating. Thank you, Sean. And we'll go to our regular scheduled meeting.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
All right. The regular meeting. What time is it now? Oh, it's the long one. Did everybody get the information I sent? Because Brian, you seem to have trouble. You didn't get all the links.
I did not. I don't know why.
Did everybody else get the package I sent out?
Yes, the minutes, I have the minutes
Okay.
and the demolition information.
So, well, Brian, you wrote the minutes, so
I have the minutes.
so you got the minutes. And has everybody had a chance to read the minutes?
Mine didn't come through with the attachments either.
None of the attachments came through? Let me take a minute and send them. I'm wondering if you're having a hiccup with Charter, though.
Oh, wait, never mind. Got him. Never mind.
Okay.
Just kidding.
All right. Well, I know you're getting hiccups once in a while with lovely.
No, this was all me. Sorry. I'd love to blame Charter or you
I would
or
never
pretty much
blame.
anybody but me, but
No, you're good. You're good about it. I'd still blame Charter. All right. Let me give you a minute to read the meeting minutes. And on this, while we're reading, this is Mr. DeShano's last night with us. Mike, what are you going to do with yourself?
I have a few things on the fire that keep me busy.
Good. Yeah, and I know you're so involved with the society and you're doing good work.
Yeah, that's probably going to be my shift, is to focus primarily on getting that stuff, that building up to snuff, and whatever else I can keep myself busy on. But
Hey, don't forget, have you sent an email with your resignation to Diane
Yes.
Wackel? You did? Okay.
Yep.
So Amanda, can you contact Diane Wackel and see what the procedure is to get you as a voting member?
Sure.
It's my recollection, it's not simple.
Okay.
You have to like apply. So she'll know the routine, and we'll work with that. All right, so has everybody had a chance to read the prior meeting minutes?
Yes,
I move that we approve the May 31st, 2022 minutes of the Historic District Commission meeting.
Second,
Okay, so we'll start the votes. Leslie,
Yes.
Mr. Swanson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
yes,
Bob,
yes,
Mr. Mike.
yes,
All right, one down. Thank you all. Thanks, Brian. Thank you for doing the meeting minutes. Old business, historic preservation plan. I met with, it was through Zoom. I was part of the planning board meeting earlier in the month, walked them through what we were doing. They were very complimentary, which is great. I also gave a copy to the new town planner, and so she made some comments, some very good comments that I have, that I'd like to incorporate into the plan. I haven't completed that yet. So we're still plugging through the comments. I was hoping to have it all done by July the 1st, and I regret that it won't be done on July the 1st. I'm still working on quite a few of the comments from Mass Historical Commission. So that's where that stands, loose ends. I ordered 2 books that Tom Reardon had recommended. These were written by Peter Whitney back in the day. I only ordered 2 because I wasn't sure we're going to get the books in on time, and I was going to get my expense voucher in on time so that they would be paid under this current year's funding. It would be a balance of about $500 because they're pretty tight when they do that, because on July the 1st, your new account. So anyway, I bought 2 books. Let me know if you're interested. I will get them to you, whoever the first 2 who speak up, but it'll be kind of like a loaner book. So when you're done with it, make sure you let us know so we can pass it to the next person. So these are Whitney's books, and it's about the history of the Worcester County, and is a section of that with all the different towns, and Northborough's included in that. So give me a text, email, tell me when you want to take a copy, and I'll drop one off at your home. Is that right?
Good.
Right. And Tom, you actually mentioned ideas about maps, which is a good one. But many of the maps are available through the Historical Society, so we can just buy them from them if we want to do some maps. On a side note, one of the nice ideas that Laurie Corners had, the town planner, is to actually have some of these maps framed and put them in town hall. I never thought of that, so we could put that on our to-do list for things coming up. I notified the department, the DPW, about who the contacts were for the current CPA project. So Lorna is going to work with them regarding the cemetery signs, and I'll work with them regarding the Brigham Street update. Lorna's already communicated with the DPW director about how he wants the signage, and he wants it to read the Kaiser Cemetery, and the date, I think it's the date where the land was purchased. So that's working. That's progress on that. Has anybody given consideration for CPA funding requests for FY24? And this is Leslie. I want to get an idea of when the timing is for any applications.
It hasn't been, I don't think it was absolutely decided, but it was discussed to accelerate it to September.
To accelerate it to September, because there was an August date at one point.
Yeah, I'd have to go back, and I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to ask John today. The minutes from that meeting haven't come out yet. You were at the meeting, so if you might be remembering better than I am. I apologize.
Well, I knew there was, someone brought up possibility of a rolling not rolling admission, but a rolling acceptance.
Yeah, but nothing was formally
Decided.
determined.
Can you kind of keep us in the loop, because it might influence when we have our next meeting?
Yeah, I'll
An
email John
application
right now.
Or either that or we put an application in with like a placeholder. We know kind of what we want to do. So has anybody given any thoughts of what we kind of might want to do for CPA funding for the next year, fiscal year 24?
Well, Norma, I had mentioned to you that I'd like to see if there is a mechanism to combine historic preservation and energy retrofits, especially in the downtown area. Because we could be proactive in helping preserve the buildings and make sure they're historically correct, but also extend the life of these old leaky buildings. But I don't know the mechanism.
Are you thinking that we have a pot of money that we can fund out as grants to places?
Possibly, if there was a revolving fund, if homeowner wants to insulate their exterior walls and they want to replace the siding, rather than going to vinyl, we could help them with the financing of the siding, and they could do a properly installed wood siding that is historically correct. Or if they wanted to replace single glazed windows with insulated, simulated divided light, rather than say just a vinyl with inserts. There's an upcharge to the higher quality, historically correct materials. I thought it'd be great if we could have some kind of matching funds if they agree to allow us to be part of that decision-making.
What you're describing, I've heard of. I think some other organization is doing it, where they're using CPA, where they're using historical CPA money as a pool, and then they vote on how to donate, hand out grants for the use of those funding. If you could, what I'd like, you brought up the idea, so I'm gonna kind of say maybe you might be interested in pursuing it. Are you familiar with?
Talk to about what mechanism or what legal vehicle would be able to help us do such a thing?
If the town belongs to an organization, it's the Community Preservation Consortium. Is that right, Leslie? The Community Preservation Consortium.
The Northborough Committee, or?
Yeah, I think pay a fee to participate in that. And there's a key guy. I'll find the website, and the key guy is Oh, it's things that starts with an S, so I can't do it off the top of my head.
Are you talking about the coalition? There's
Yes,
a coalition, yeah. I mean, our committee is called the Community Preservation Committee, but
yeah, so I'm talking about the Community Preservation Coalition. I'm sorry for using
Okay.
the wrong word. So, Tom, I'll find their website, and I know the contact there. I've asked them for questions in the past. It guides you right in the right direction. I know there are towns that are using something like you're describing. My recollection, it gets very complex very quickly in the sense of running it because of the town money. And I just know there's a real formal approach to it. So if I send you the link and send you the contact, I think he can point you in the right direction. I think the key is to talk to a few towns that have this and find out how it's working. But to be honest, I think it's a great idea, especially if we could initially focus it on something to do with the downtown district.
And if I'd contact Mass Save and see if they could be a partner as well.
That would be great. I think that's great. So, and I think it might be something we won't know enough about to get it in for an application this year, but let's start the process and learn how this could work.
Okay.
I know, Leslie, you mentioned something about signs to me in an email a while back. Is that something of still some curiosity? These are the historic markers we've been popping around town.
yeah, I mean, I think they're a great resource. So they're not, I think it's a kind of a big bang for the buck. I don't know how often they get looked at, but I think they're cool. So I think I had mentioned the bank building and I forget which ones I mentioned now. The little bank building in town. I guess we've talked about the C'est La Vie site, but that's more complicated, right?
Well, they're both, complicated, not the best use of the word. The challenge is because the sidewalk state property and they're on private property. We have been able to put one sign up in front of the old Gale store, which worked out okay.
Yeah, the Habitat, yeah.
But the preservation plan has a list of some signage opportunities, and I like the idea that these are downtown. But I'm thinking, the library doesn't have one. And that's a town property. It'll be easy to install. It's used so much. The library doesn't have one. For Main Street, even though it's a reproduction, there's a lot of history with that site that doesn't have one. That's a town property. White Cliffs is a town property. Even the current town hall is a town property. So we got some in town that would be almost like an easy to install because of the location's not a problem.
Yeah.
Definitely wouldn't want to propose 4 because we did want 3 one year, and it's a challenge. Want to give it some thought, Leslie? Which ones you propose?
I just want to throw out for discussion. I'm not wedded to any one in particular. I just think it's fun to think about new ones each year. And
we haven't put anything up. I think it's almost 3 years now. We've got other things to do. So we threw out 6 different possible signs. If you were to pick 2 that we could consider for next year, does anybody have a preference? These are those historical markers, the brass markers that are on a post.
I'm just pulling up my email. So at the time, so I mentioned the Pincus House and the bank building. Yeah. Or even a shared marker. I mean, some of those properties are next to each other too. So even the Pincus House and the library, although the library is probably worthy of one on its own, but since they're all in the same area, I could even consider a shared sign if that would work.
Well, I don't see anybody jumping at it right now. Why don't we give it some thought, but we'll have to decide at our next meeting if we want to put a sign up so we can get the application in and then go from there. So does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, are there any other ideas from folks of other areas around town you think would make sense?
Not so much. All right.
How about the aqueduct?
There is one
Got
there.
Where is it? It's covered in shrubs.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
It's one of the first ones we put in. It's the first one with a photograph on it. If you're going down Hudson Street toward
Right.
the center of town,
Yeah.
right when you head to the bridge, it's right there.
Okay, I'll have to look for it.
Take a walk. It's easy to see if you're walking. All right, so that will be a follow-up on CPA. Apple Fest, we may not meet till September. We take the summer off. Apple Fest is, I have it as the date is September 17th. So if we want to have a booth, I'm sure there will be a request for funding for the booth. I'd like to, if we want to have a booth and we want to have a request for funding for the booth, I'd like to settle that tonight so that we don't have to have some panic meeting just to decide on something simple like this. So we have not had an Apple Fest booth for 3 years, I think, because of the pandemic. And last year we pulled it at the last minute just because things were still not quite right. So the first question is, do we want an Apple Fest booth? And the second question is, who's available for putting in a couple hours at the booth?
I'm available, but since Rotary runs it, I'm kind of committed to helping with on the Rotary end. So we run the whole street fair and then we have our own booth too.
Do you know what the fee is? I think last year was $80, something like
Yeah,
that.
there's no change, no plan changes, 80 or 85. I'd have to look it up, but yeah, it hasn't changed.
It is a good way to put our face in front of the community, especially when we have a preservation plan that would be kind of like the reason that we have the booth to show people that we're thinking.
I'm available. It would be helpful to have handouts of some sort.
We have a variety of handouts already.
Okay.
But we should have something particular for the whatever our theme is. We try to have a theme whenever we have a booth. So
I don't think we're planning to raise it. It's $80. I mean, that's still under review right now, but it's $80 for a single and $110 for a double.
So how about, why don't we make a motion? Somebody make a motion for spending for an Apple Fest booth for not to exceed $100.
So moved.
All right. So let's do a quick go around.
Second, we have to second it.
Yes, Bob, thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All right, so Bob, you got to vote.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Duchesneau,
Yes.
probably your last vote ever. Brian Smith,
Agree.
thank you. Brian Swanson,
Yes.
and I say yes. So it's a not to exceed $100. So that way, when it comes in, I can do that pretty quick.
Actually, I didn't vote on it. I made the motion, but I didn't vote. So I
All
voted
right,
yes.
still unanimous? Okay. Thank you. Quick updates, White Cliffs. So if anybody watched the White Cliffs meeting from earlier in the week, we interviewed 3 possible candidates to do the work with us to develop a request for proposal and to help us get it out to the market and help evaluate it. And we selected a company called Kirk & Company to do that. The Kirk & Company actually worked with us on White Cliffs back before the town bought it, so they're familiar with the building. The fellow we spoke with was the same fellow from back that time frame, and it looks like a real good fit. So
What's that company again, Norm? Sorry.
Kirk, K-I-R-K & Company.
Thank you.
So the ball's rolling on that, and since the money has to be spent by the end of this month, things should happen quick to get him on board and rolling. So that's something we've been wanting to do for quite some time. Millie's not here, so I don't know if there's an update for the Master Plan Implementation Committee, but as you know, they're working. I don't know if they sent out the RFP for us consultants to look at downtown. Anything to know on community preservation, Leslie? Nothing yet?
No. I did just send an email to John and copied you to get clarity on the.
Did I let you know that the National Register documentation has been submitted for the Howard Street Cemetery? Last meeting, we hadn't submitted it, we were reviewing it. Did I send it to you guys?
Yes.
The National Register documentation for the Howard Street?
Yeah, I remember seeing it.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. In case you have a chance to scan it, it is unbelievably detailed. It's phenomenal kind of information she was extracting. So now we sit and wait. If it's like my property, we'll sit and wait for over a year and a half before the Mass Historic Commission gets back to us with their comments, and then it goes through another cycle. So we're quite a ways away from getting it on, but the process is starting. Bob Light is our representative, is working with the town planner for the most endangered historic resources. We want to put White Cliffs on that list because that will give us a whole variety of publicity. That I simplified it, I'm sure, but I know Bob's been started working with Laurie.
Yeah, couple things about the pictures that they want.
Yep.
And you mentioned you had some of the original historical pictures. The what is it? The DBVW report
Yeah.
has some great pictures, probably everything that we need there. The only issue is it's supposed to be a high resolution JPEG electronic file.
Yeah.
So unless anyone has any ideas, the only thing I could think of is just to take a picture, a photograph of the original.
Well, I've got, I have hundreds of pictures of White Cliffs, and most of the ones that DBVW used are from me. So what I'll do is, Bob, I'll start with going through and seeing, I'll work with you on this, and I'll go through the DBVW report and look for particular pictures.
Okay.
Some of them, in order to get them over to DBVW, shrinking is not the right word, but I made them a smaller file, but the original files might be significantly larger. And some of the old historic photographs came out of the files in the Historical Society. So if we don't have what we want, it's just a matter of asking the society to let us in there and take pictures of them.
You think they have electric files?
No, they have
Okay, so
original black and whites. Yeah.
And I'm not a
8 by
techie, but
10s.
I think the only thing we can do is actually just take a photograph of the,
Yeah.
just to put it in the format. Okay, she was talking about 5 to 10 digital high resolution photographs. So I guess, I don't know if she wants to choose them or if we will.
Well, I let's give her like 20 to pick from.
Okay.
I have
All right.
photographed all the interiors
Oh,
with my Nikon, so they're high quality JPEG.
Oh, that's it. Perfect.
But if you, let me see how I can get them to you. I have to compress them because they're such big files.
Yeah, you can actually send them directly to Lori, I guess.
Okay.
well, we should read them down though. We don't want Laurie to go through 80, 90 photographs.
Okay.
Duplications of some of the things you have.
It's just I'm not
Can you
I'm
just
not
put them in?
clear what. Yeah, I'm not clear what she's looking for. I'm assuming that we want historical pictures and
Well, she-
pictures of the.
She only wants 10. So I know there's
Yeah.
3 classic historical ones. So now we're down
Okay.
to 7. Now we're down to 7.
Okay.
So, Tom, I use Dropbox. Do you use Dropbox, Bob?
Yes.
Yeah,
Is-
I'll try to figure out how to use, I have it on my computer. I've received drawings through Dropbox. I have not put them into it myself, so.
Google Drive is super easy, and now that there's Google Drive, I'm not sure, I know you're used to Dropbox, but Google Drive is kind of universal. So
Huh.
just a thought. If you have like a Gmail account or,
Yeah, and then you asked to have access to it. Is that what you're talking about?
I think just go to drive.google.com and you can upload documents there, and then you share the link to an album or individual files or whatever with people. And
Okay, we'll figure it out.
If push comes to shove, put it on a memory stick and we're good to go. It's not like we live 100 miles apart.
Okay. The other thing I need to work on is that she has asked 2 questions. What is the resources role in the community, past, present, and future?
Yeah.
And then what about the resource and its significance is so important to save? So I'm thinking I could try to draft something from the DBVW report and maybe send it around for edits.
But
Or,
right now, just keep it between the 2 of us.
okay,
We'll keep it simple. And the
Okay.
reason for that is we might not have another meeting till September, and she just needs
Right.
to be August
Right.
31st. So,
okay, good idea.
and you do a good drafts, Bob, and use the DBVW as the Bible. If
Okay,
it's not in there, we probably don't need it.
okay.
And
One
I'll look at
thing,
it for the photographs.
Norm, if you do have a chance, one thing you could do is look, excuse me, look at those 2 questions, and if you had just a couple bulleted thoughts.
Okay.
And then I'll turn that into paragraphs.
Oh, okay.
You know, just some ideas, because I'm not as familiar with it as you are. I'll definitely go through the report. I've done that already. But you know, if you just ended, I'm not asking you to write anything. Just
Right, you just want
couple thoughts.
Okay, some are already coming to mind. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, that would help. And then
Yeah.
I'll turn it into something, and then I'll let you review it.
All right.
So are we definitely not meeting in July then? Is that what you're saying?
We haven't got to that point yet.
Okay, sorry.
That's next meeting date too. So Lorna's not here tonight, but she did email me and I wanted to get it on record. You remember a while back, I asked her, why am I getting some emails from insurance companies that are asking me the situation of any old building, if it's got restrictions on it and the like. And Lorna finally tracked it down and she says, you know what? There are some insurance companies that will not insure antique homes, especially if there's any restrictions on them, like they're on the register or a historic district, or if they're, and that was a surprise to me. But she says, no, that she's found out that there are some insurance companies, it's too risky for them to insure, because you get an antique home, you burn it down, and how do you build a replica? So that's something that I've had in the past 2 years. I've had only 2 phone calls from insurance companies that I had to guarantee, that I had to document that the buildings did not have any preservation restrictions on them. Something to know. Didn't know that before. All right, that's all I had for everything. And anybody else before we look at meeting dates? All right, so we usually like to take the summer off unless there's something critical. So we're in June now, so conceptually we could take off July and August unless something pops up that needs attention, which would put us into a September meeting. If we took this option, I would recommend the September meeting being the week before Apple Fest, so we can kind of get our head around what we want to do at the Apple Fest. If you see a reason that we should meet earlier, why don't we discuss that now? If it's important, we can.
Just for CPA request, if we do decide. I mean, the other thing, we just talked about markers quickly tonight. We didn't look at the historic preservation plan to see what the list of priorities were. So maybe it's worth looking to see if there was something else on there besides a marker that.
Right. I made an assumption when I sent that out that you all have chapter 7 of the preservation plan somewhere in your files. Because I know somewhere I sent, it's still a draft, mind you, but that's kind of stuff is pretty locked in. So was I mistaken? Do I have to make sure you have this information? Because you've got to remember, chapter 7, it's like chapter 7.3 lists anything we could possibly ever think of doing. And now we have to, like, can't do them all today, but which ones should we do, like, sooner than later? I think what it's going to come down to, Leslie, if you find out that the CPAs, we're gonna have to get our request in before September 1st, then you'll have to let us know, and we will call a meeting just to discuss CPA. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you'll see the response too. So I copied you on it. So John responds.
So that way, so if we meet in July or August, right now the only topic will be CPA plans. And I did look at the September calendar. Look at it again, because I wouldn't mind putting a date on the book just to lock things in. So it would be Monday, September 12th, if we do it by Zoom. If we do it in person, it would probably be the 14th. So just wait on that date.
Yeah, I have 2 sets of dates for every. I have our traditional Wednesday date, and then I have the 4th Monday one that we had. So I have all those, like, 2 sets of dates for.
Well,
on my calendar.
Keep them both on. Keep both sets. for you who don't know, I mean, we're very fortunate that Bob participated tonight because he may not have participated if we were live. You feeling better there, Bob?
Not really, but hanging in there.
Good.
I just did my COVID test yesterday and I got COVID. So,
Oh, sorry to hear that.
yeah.
Hopefully it's not an amount to anything.
Yeah, I got, being a senior citizen, I got special pills from the doctor. So that should clear it up in a few days.
Good.
What a perk. So there are real advantages to Zoom. As much as it frustrates me, it has its place for sure. All right, unless you guys want to keep talking, and it's almost 8:45, so why don't somebody wants to close this thing out?
I move that we end the meeting, adjourn.
And that,
With Brian Swanson second that. All right, we'll go around. Mr. DeShano,
Yes,
good luck with everything.
thank you.
Mr.
Yeah,
Luck,
thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Swanson,
yes.